This episode of the Handcuffs and Sawdust Podcast is brought to you by surfprepsanding.com. For all your sanding needs, check out www.surfprepsanding.com.
Welcome to the Handcuffs and Sawdust Podcast, the show about life on the street as a beat cop and life in the shop as a woodworker. They pull no punches and tell it like it is, so buckle in and get ready. Now, here are your hosts from Marazzo Woodworking, Mike Marazzo, and from Full House Woodworking, Brandon Silvera.
Hey everybody, this is Mike Marazzo and Brandon Silvera. Welcome to the Handcuffs and Sawdust Podcast. Episode 1. We are just starting out and we are so glad that you were able to join us from wherever you are listening. May it be in your car or your home or the library. So what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of intro about myself, and then Brandon will introduce himself, and then we'll speak about what we want this podcast to be. So my name is Mike Marazzo. I am the Midnight Maker on Instagram, Midnight Maker. I have been in law enforcement since 1999, so I'm in my 21st year, if I can do math properly. And I work for a small department just outside of Chicago, in the suburbs on the west side of Chicago, sandwiched near O'Hare Airport. We have a pretty good call volume. We see a lot of stuff. We stay busy for our department size for sure. At my department, since it is small, a lot of us have multiple jobs or assignments. So right now I'm assigned to patrol, and we have 33 sworn officers. So among some of those special assignments for myself, I've been a field training officer since 2003, an evidence technician since 2004, which allowed me to serve for 10 years on what was called the West Suburban Major Crimes Task Force as a forensic investigator for homicides. And then I was put on another task force called MCAT, which was another homicide forensic unit. So I've been able to do that. Public information officer for the police department, truck enforcement officer, at one time a recruiting officer, and a fire investigator. So I've been able to do all that kind of stuff, and feel fortunate because of the size of my department that it allowed me to wear so many hats. And the reason why I got into law enforcement in the first place was my father was a police officer, and growing up in a world of television police shows like Starsky and Hutch and Beretta and Kojak and all those ones that nobody that's listening to this can remember, I always wanted to do the job, and seeing my father as a police officer really gave me some inspiration. And he actually worked for a department right next door to where I work now, so I'm constantly running into people that know my dad. And we actually got to work together for the last 15 years. He was a dispatcher for our police department after he retired. Took a chief's job up in Wisconsin and did that, and then came back here. So he's now fully retired, and but he was always my inspiration to become a police officer. So with that, I'm going to let Brandon introduce himself.
Well, hey everyone, like Mike said, I'm Brandon from Full House Woodworking. I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum to Mike. I've been a cop for 3 years. I have no special assignments yet. I'm barely being able to test for them. I'm still amazed that they let me push a car by myself. I work in a major department out in California, out in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'll leave it at that. We are actually one of the most undersized departments in the country for the population that we serve. And so the whole reason I wanted to get into law enforcement was during high school. I had a lot of friends get mixed up in gangs, drugs, and I went to way too many funerals before the age of 20. California's economy crashed, surprise, and I left for the military, came back, and still wanted to try to make the world a little bit of a better place. So went and got hired in a major police department, which is nice because I don't have to wear as many hats as Mike does, but I can more or less do as much or as little as needs to be done. So no family history in law enforcement, just wanted to make the world a little bit of a better place. The, rose-colored glasses theory.
Excellent. I think that's why most of the people that I know that are in this field do that job, right? They want to make the world a better place, and the communities that we live in, they want to make it safer and better for everyone around us.
Yeah, it's usually one of two reasons. You either have a long lineage of family members that were cops, or you just wanted to do a little bit of good.
All right, exactly right. My sister is actually a 911 dispatcher. So at one point we had 3 Marazos working at our police department, which drove everybody nuts. All right, so now that we got our introductions out of the way, I'm going to just mention why I got into woodworking and how that started. I've always liked building stuff, and I bought my first home in 1992 when we got married, and it was a small little 2-bedroom ranch, and I didn't really know much about home remodeling or the like. And I have a brother who's a fantastic carpenter, and he actually built Frank Thomas's home of the White Sox back in the day. So I had some stuff I wanted to do to the other house, finish the basement, add a bathroom, do tile work, flooring, all that kind of stuff. My grandpa and my brother helped me do all that. So 3 houses later, I'm in this house, and I get put on the midnight shift. So I have to be up all night when everybody else is sleeping. And I needed to find an outlet for work and stress-related things and just something to do so I don't go crazy. So I helped a buddy out one night. He was painting his garage, and he went to bed, and I said, hey, I'll finish it. I got nothing to do. So I finished painting his garage for him inside, and I posted on Facebook, Midnight Painter. Anybody want a midnight painter? And then I've done so much handyman work. A friend of mine said, hey, you should be the midnight handyman. So I started that, and that's how I got into Instagram. And I started following a bunch of good woodworkers. And now I am knee-deep in orders that I can't keep up with. Why did you start your woodworking journey, Brandon?
So we're actually in the garage of the first house that my wife and I have been able to buy. So up until we're coming up on our 10-year wedding anniversary. Up until now, we've been renters. So it all started with a very simple request. I want an end table. So I said, sure. I went to the internet like any good woodworker does. And I found this very simple design and put it together. It's made up of just pine, I think 1x6s and pressure treated 2x4s because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It's stained. And there's no glue. It's all exposed fasteners. And it might be the most square thing I have ever built in my life. All I had was a about 2-foot tall work table that my new laser is sitting on. I had a speed square, a circular saw, and a drill driver. And just a whole lot of, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll do it. Whole family helped out with it. I think there's pictures on my Instagram from that first build. And that's where Full House came from. We had the whole house involved in it. And it's still sitting in the living room, tucked away in the corner. Still works just fine. Still square as can be. But there's no glue. There's just number 2 Phillips screws all throughout it. But I had a little bit of, I guess, know-how I grew up on a sweet potato farm. So I'm used to working on tractors and farm equipment and stuff like that, but nothing as like fine detailed as woodworking. So I built that, and then she wanted a hexagon shelf, so I built her a hexagon shelf, and then we wanted an entry table, so I built an entry table. And then somebody asked me to build them a bar for some reason I still don't understand. Like at that point, like what the heck are you doing asking me to build you a bar? Like I've got like maybe 3 builds under my belt. And then someone else asked me to build them a flag. Then after that flag, things really started to kind of take off. And then my wife came up with the idea of, you should get on Instagram and do that. Like, create just a page for your woodworking. So I did, and it turns out there's a whole community dedicated to just people in their garages getting after it, trying to make a little extra money or just trying to, decompress. That's what this has turned into for me is one of the other things I like to do is barbecue, and I thought that was going to be my way of coping with some of the stuff that we see on a day-to-day basis. And it turns out that the woodworking has done wonders because I can come out here and I can completely lose myself in a project, and the next thing I know I look up and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's time for me to finally turn in because I'm on a midnight shift too. So it gave me something to do rather than just, sit on the couch, drink beer, eat chips, and play video games all night, which I still do. Like, that's awesome, and I'm never going to stop doing it, but I need to do things outside of that.
Yeah, I have many friends that on my shift that play video games up at night. They remind me of Thor from when he gets fat and he's playing video games and threatening all the other kids because they're mean video game players. I don't play video games. I'm still rocking a PS2.
Oh, wow. That's the Thor I most identify with. That's me.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I just got a post the other day from a gentleman. I made 2 flags for a friend of mine at Frontline Cigars. He has a Help the Heroes Foundation, and they were doing a cigar fundraiser, and he asked me to make 2 flags. I had never made a flag in my life. So I made 2, a blue line flag and an American flag. And the gentleman just hung up the American flag and sent me a picture the other day. It's the very first flag I made. So from there, I'm on flag number 87 now. And I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube. If you want to get into woodworking, flag making is a great way to get into woodworking. And it allowed me to buy all kinds of tools. My CNC machine was paid for by flags. Every big purchase I've had has been flags. So it's a great way to start.
Yeah, I bought my Delta table saw with flag money. I've just bought my first laser engraver with flag money. I mean, it's the thing I've built the most, but it's afforded me the ability to expand my tool collection.
Yeah, and I've wanted to do so many other builds, and I've got the chance. I just finished this corkboard for a police department, which is a nice thing to do. And I often tell the guys at work that I actually go to work to relax because I'm so busy at home in the shop.
Yeah, during Christmas time, that seems to be when things got the hairiest for me, is I would go to work to relax.
Right? I can imagine. You get busy doing orders, it's hard. All right, here we go. So Brandon and I really wanted to start this podcast for a number of reasons, and we hope to accomplish a few things with this podcast on a weekly basis. So that's our goal. We want to put out a podcast once a week, and we will roughly cover 45 to 60 minutes each episode, and the conversations will be on the happenings across the country in law enforcement, shootings, trials, protests, stuff like that. And then we will also be adding guests from around the nation who are also woodworkers and police officers in our own community. So, and by community, I mean the woodworking law enforcement community. Like Brandon said, I had no idea what Instagram was. And one of my friends at work asked me, "Hey, Mike, do you follow this person on Instagram?" I'm like, "No, what's Instagram? I thought people just posted pictures of themselves in bikinis on Instagram." He said, "No, there's a huge woodworking community on Instagram." So my buddy Jimmy got me involved in the Instagram woodworking community, and I love it. So we're going to be talking to police officers who are in the woodworking community. And while we're talking, we'll be talking about all the things I mentioned and stuff, what happens at our own departments that we can discuss, which has been already litigated, just interesting stories to us and how we do our job. And then we're going to be talking about what our woodworking projects are, what's on our bench, what's on your bench, any difficulties that we're facing, any new ideas if we need help with something. That's one great thing about this community is if you need help with something, there's always a woodworker willing to help. It's been a fantastic way to resource knowledge. And then what we'd like to do is end each podcast with a feel-good story, because we are talking about law enforcement and it is a toxic environment right now, but we want to end on a good note. And I'd like to do a woodworker profile of the week from Instagram. So that's what my thoughts are for this podcast. And Brandon's going to tell you what his are.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement as to what we want out of this. One of the other things I wanted to get out of this was to humanize cops. Most of the people that see Mike and I in a professional sense, they don't see us like this. I mean, I may still have a hat on, but it's got a totally different patch up top, and I definitely don't show up in a t-shirt and shorts with a smile on my face. I try to show up with a smile every now and then, but there's a lot of times people are encountering us on the worst day of their lives. But what a lot of people don't understand, and the events of this summer with the George Floyd protests / riots really drew that out of people don't see us as people, as humans. So I wanted to humanize us for the general public. I know this is mainly geared towards law enforcement, but maybe some copper shares it with a friend who maybe has a negative, view of cops as a whole, and this kind of drives it in of like, oh, you're just a dude. You're just a guy trying to pay a mortgage, raise your kids, and come home from work each night, or in our case, each morning. And one thing that some departments are getting better with their social media and highlighting this stuff, but good cops are not highlighted nearly enough. If the general public, and I'm talking country as a whole, saw the good things that officers do day in and day out, this total narrative would change that, like all cops are bastards. That wouldn't be a thing. For example, in my department, there was a tragic case where a little girl lost her life. Accident, total, just freak accident where a car backing off a trailer hit her, killed her. Family was in town from like Texas. The officers on shift that day came out of their own pocket without any prompting, and we paid for the family to stay in a hotel until arrangements could be made for that little girl's funeral. I think all told, we raised about $2,000, just lowly beat cops, to put that family up and take care of them so that they could grieve and they could heal. You didn't see it in the news. You didn't see it in a newspaper. All that was the 1,100 coppers that worked for my department. We were the only ones that knew, and that family. And that's, in all honesty, those are the only ones we care about knowing. But I think the public as a whole needs to see that, so they realize that when you see these bad shootings or these bad acts, that's one versus the whole. Like that's the cancerous part, but you still have a healthy body that needs to be focused on.
Exactly right. Every profession has people that don't belong, and we are no different. Unfortunately for us, we're not seeing stories about doctors who are being sued for malpractice and killed somebody on the table because they removed the wrong organ or something like that. The nation right now wants to concentrate on law enforcement and have this ridiculous defund the police movement when what you just mentioned happens every day around the country on every department. That's why I like being a field training officer, getting a new guy and trying to teach him compassion, right, for the people that we serve. I went on a call and years ago, and some guy was out in front of one of our gas stations, and he was soliciting money because he was homeless, and he was asking everybody that comes up to him for money. And I know you guys go on these calls all the time. So I went with one of the newer guys, and I approached this gentleman and asked him how I could help him. And he said, I don't need any help. I said, okay, where do you live? And he says, I don't have a home. I said, okay, well, I got a call here that you were asking people for money. And he's looking at me, and behind me is the gas station. And he's not looking into my eyes. He's looking over my shoulder, and he's waving to people to try and get their attention to get money. And I said, that right there, that's why I need to help you. You're looking for money. What do you need it for? And he said, I haven't eaten. And we were standing right next to a beef joint, Italian beef place. And I said, oh, okay, well, here's $10. I want to see you walk in that beef joint and get yourself some lunch and possibly some dinner. And he said, oh my God, thank you so much. And he walked into the beef place to get something to eat. And the young guy looks at me and goes, what the hell did you do that for? You just gave him $10. I said, yeah, what, you don't like to feed humans? Give him $10, he can go eat, and we'll never get another call with this guy right now. And we didn't. Our job is to serve people that way as well. All right, so what we're going to do this week to start off our news update episode, I printed out a few things that we wanted to touch base on. And the first one I have here is of a Kenosha officer. If you guys remember, last month or 6 weeks ago, there was a shooting up in Kenosha. Might have been even 2 months ago, where the gentleman that they were trying to arrest was going into his car to retrieve a knife, and he was shot and paralyzed. His name is Jacob Blake. Now, everybody in this area knows of Jacob Blake. But just on the 14th, the Kenosha police chief announced that the officer who shot Jacob Blake will not be disciplined, and he's been returned to full duty, and it was a justified shooting. Now, I haven't seen any major news on this event, just came across it online. I have a statement here. It says, although this incident has been reviewed at multiple levels, I understand that some will not be pleased with the outcome. However, given the facts, it was the only lawful and appropriate decision to be made, Kenosha Police Chief Daniel Miskins said in a statement. So, Officer Shesky was not charged with any wrongdoing, Chief Miskins said. He acted within the law and was consistent with training. Officer Shesky was found to have been acting within policy and will not be subject to discipline. I haven't really seen, now that was on the 14th, so I haven't really seen any negative news in regards to that coming forth. I don't know if you have, Brandon.
No, this is, honestly, when you sent me the rundown, this is the first I've heard of it. Good for him. I'm glad. That shooting made news, and that was one of the more frustrating ones because you and I look at it through the eyes of the cop there of going, I don't know what's in that car. I don't know that there's children in that car. I don't know if there's a weapon in that car. All I know is that this guy has some sort of felony warrant. He's continually causing domestic issues. So that's something that I think the whole world can get on board with, that maybe domestic violence is kind of a bad thing. Like in California, it doesn't matter if it's a push or a shove and there's no injury. I'm arresting you. Like, I don't have a choice. But I think one thing that we've kind of had to come to grips with as cops is we have to start looking at these through the eyes of the person who sees that real small clip that just sees a guy going into his car and getting shot. So yeah, that clip in and of itself is bad, but when you throw in what happened before, when you throw in the information that the officers were getting about him, the type of call they were responding to, it was some type of disturbance where it's a girlfriend and her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend who is constantly hitting her. That's already, when you land, you're already going into protect mode. I got to get people away from each other. I need to start sorting this out. Oh, this guy has a warrant. Cool, it's a felony warrant, so it's for a violent crime because, let's face it, nationally, nothing's a felony anymore. Unless it's murder, robbery, or some sort of domestic violence. Like, you got to do some bad stuff to be charged with a felony. I mean, hell, in California, carrying a concealed firearm is still just a misdemeanor. That's how bad you have to mess up to be charged with a felony. So, I feel bad for the guy because he's always going to be that guy. I mean, it's tragic that, Mr. Blake got shot, and, thankfully he lived, but it's one of those things of just, it's a bad situation that there is no right answer, because if the cop guesses wrong, he's dead. I mean, that's really all you can do is guess. You make an educated guess with the info you have at the time.
Right. Civilians don't really know what the term totality of the circumstances is. These are all factors that we have to take into account as we show up on the scene. We already have the call of why this person's there. Then a name check reveals they have a felony warrant. Now in Cook County, to get a felony warrant, you pretty much have to, I can't even say fly a plane into a building, but Cook County getting felonies approval is very hard. But elsewhere across the United States,
we're already flagged. Episode 1, we're already flagged.
Yeah, flag, penalty. But seriously, in all seriousness, not to make light of that situation, Cook County sucks. And one thing that's always bothered me within law enforcement, we all have a job to do, but in every state, the laws are different, and it drives me absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I can't stand that. And even, like, for instance, within California, each county's different. So, like, in the county I work in, you have to be caught with, say, meth. You have to be caught 3 times before they'll file anything. And even then, you're going to get probation. But if you go up to Washington, I think possession of methamphetamine is still a felony. So there needs to be, I understand each state, each county needs to kind of decide what they want enforced. But we have to have some sort of almost standardization so that we can start judging people. I mean, if we're going to judge every use of force incident, we need to be judging it by the same standard across the board. Otherwise, someone in Wisconsin is going to see a use of force in California and be like, dude, that was fine. And then a cop in California is going to see a use of force out in New York and be like, ooh, I don't know. That's a sketchy one.
Yeah, so true. And I know TV is television, so I have to constantly remind people when they show up on crime scenes and they want me to lift a fingerprint from a rock. It's not television. So television is different. It always drives me crazy watching like Law and Order, and assault and battery is one thing, and it's different than it is here in the Chicagoland area. But it needs to be uniformed more, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, from watching cop shows coming up, I thought there would be, 1, a lot more semen than there is, and 2, I thought you could get some sort of like toxicology report or drug test. I thought you'd get that back in like an hour.
Yeah, right. Andy Sipowicz cleared a murder case once an hour. Andy Sipowicz of NYPD Blue, for those of you that are too young to know that reference.
Yeah. No, I get that one. They have it on the streaming services, but it's not in HD, so I don't get it.
Nice. Yeah, it's called Ion Television. Oh, you're killing me with your youth. All right. The second thing I wanted to talk about this week was the Chicago Office of Police Accountability, otherwise known as COPA. They finally released the footage of a shooting that occurred last week with a 13-year-old boy. Now, if you listen to the media, this 13-year-old boy who was out at 4 a.m. with a gun shooting down an alley and spotted on video is so innocent. Yet the video came out yesterday or the day before. I'm now confused since I'm back on my night schedule of the foot chase that resulted from the police officers being sent to that area because of a spot tracker software. And then the kid takes off on police and he's got the firearm in his hand. And then he stops near an open fence and the police officer orders him to put his hands up. And then as he's turning around, he drops the gun behind the fence and then the officer shoots him. So right now we're having all these discussions about, oh my God, that police officer's just murdered this 13-year-old boy. Yet what would happen if that officer held his ground and this kid turns around with a firearm and shoots first? Are we supposed to take a bullet before we can fire? So that's what's going on right here, right now. Have you seen the video?
Yeah, I actually watched it yesterday, and there was something that popped into my head that I learned through my police academy. There's this group that does force science. So it studies the body and how the body reacts to different stimuli and how quickly you can do it. So it takes 3/4 of a second for a person to perceive a threat. It takes another 3/4 of a second for a person to then react to that threat. So you're already a second and a half behind the 8 ball. And that's where this came into play. I watched the video, I slowed it down. And when I slowed it down, he goes, oh yeah, that doesn't look good. But you play that thing real time, and you try to throw in the adrenaline of having to chase after this guy who's supposed to have a gun. And remember, we're acting in good faith that whoever called 911 was being truthful and accurate in the information they give us, which, Mike, you can attest to, is almost never the case. But it's almost one of those things of, if we have to wait until we're shot at, you're going to have dead cops, left and right. We're going to be littering the street. I think already in 2021, we're at something like, I want to say like 30-something, or excuse me, 97 exactly. I have it pulled up now on the Officer Dale Memorial page. 97 officers killed in the line of duty, and we're in mid-April. That number would double, and you start taking away the ability to react to a threat before you take a round. The only cops you're going to have left are cops that need the job, not cops that want the job. And there's a big difference in the kind of person and the kind of work they're going to do when somebody wants the job versus somebody that needs that job. If you need that job, you're going to do what you got to do to get by. It doesn't matter if you cut a corner here or there. A person who wants to do the job is going to go that extra mile, is going to go and actually chase that guy that was just in your backyard, that was trying to break into your house. The guy who needs that job is like, well, I need this job. I don't need to get into a use of force and then lose mine. So he's gone, so you're good, right?
Yeah, that's what law enforcement, unfortunately, is turning into at the moment, with this new law enforcement reform bill that's coming to Illinois with a lot of changes. One of the things that they point out is if you have a subject causing a disturbance in a store, let's say, and the store owner tells him he's got to go, and then the guy says, fuck you, I'm not leaving. No, we can swear because this is a podcast, so, and it's real life. So we get called, we show up, we tell him he's got to go. He says, fuck you, I'm not leaving. Now, in Illinois, when this law becomes into effect, we're supposed to go, okay, and then I'll be right back with your ticket, and then the guy's still on your property. Same as if he's in your yard or trying to break into your home. One of my police officer friends said to me when this bill was passed, I won't be calling the police anymore. I'll be calling EMS for an unresponsive subject.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of people in California. We've explained it to them like, hey, this is how the law is in this state right now. We'll ask him to leave, but if he tells us to go pound salt, our hands are tied unless you want him arrested and you're willing to go to court. Like, I have the discretion on a misdemeanor that you're committing in my presence now of trespassing. Like, yeah, I can take you to jail. Yeah, they're just going to kick you loose quicker than I can get out of the jail. But I solved the problem. So, but the thing is, people, they'll call a cop and they expect the cop to solve the problem, but they don't want it to be any part of the solution. They just want us to wave our magic wand and make their problem go away. And that it just doesn't work like that. It has to be a collaborative effort, especially now with laws being as loose as they are as far as what's going to actually be enforced, what's going to be, sentenced to actual jail time versus what's going to be probation or, some sort of community service. So it's frustrating when you want to help people and they're like, no, I'm not going to help you, help me. Like I've had somebody yell at me after they were allegedly shot at, which surveillance camera proved to be false. They just yelled at me, just do your job. I'm like, okay, cool. Who am I looking for? Just do your job. Cool. I guess I'll leave now.
It's happening everywhere. I didn't call y'all. I don't need your help. Bleeding from the face. And, after 21 years, I'm like,
well, have a good night.
Unfortunately, if you don't want to help me help you, then you're on your own. Exactly right. Oh, so back to your force science. I wish more people knew what that was and read those articles. One of the first things we learn as police officers in the police academy is action is faster than reaction, right? So I stumbled across a video that someone sent to me, one of my buddies who's a Cook County officer, with Geraldo Rivera.
Oh, God.
On Fox News. And his suggestion to a former police officer was, we need to take the guns off the strong side of the police officer and swap them out with the tasers. So the tasers, now you're strong on your strong side and your weapon is on the opposite side. And I thought, what the fuck are you talking about? And then he got reamed by the guy who was talking to him and said, you're an asshole and an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Just be a reporter. I don't know how to be a reporter. I know how to be a cop. Stop talking about police work.
Yeah, I thought Geraldo stopped being relevant after he gave away an entire unit's position in the second Iraq War. Like, I thought we were kind of done with him then, but apparently he just keeps popping up for no apparent reason. So that is quite possibly the most idiotic thing I've ever heard.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
And here's why. To have your pistol on your non-dominant side, for me, my left, a couple things are going to have to either happen. Either it's a cross-draw thing, which is a major muscle movement to reach across in a very stressful situation. I'm going to need a lot of fine motor skill to do it, which is the first thing to go when we're under stress and we have an adrenaline dump. Or I'm going to have to be able to draw with my left and then shoot accurately. Well, it's been proven scientifically that shooting, even with your dominant hand under high stress, is really, really hard. That's why you'll see something where, like, officers fired 37 shots, suspect was hit once. It's not easy to do anything under stress. But when you talk about the level of focus that it takes to fire a firearm, like that's it. It's something that you can't reasonably ask a human being to do. I mean, and as far as a taser, I think I have used my taser a handful of times. It's like 50% effective. It's like, you look at the statistics, half the time it doesn't even work. So it's almost better to just grab onto a person and go hands on than it is to actually use that thing. So that is so idiotic. I really don't even want to give it any more time or credence or even people to consider that as an option.
No, it reminds me, I don't know if you've seen the movie Jojo Rabbit. So if you listen to this podcast, you're going to get a lot of movie references from me. So that was so stupid. The movie Jojo Rabbit is an amazing movie about a kid growing up in Germany, and he idolizes Hitler. And Taika Waititi is the gentleman who wrote the movie, directed it, and stars in it as Hitler. And I was reading up on the movie on IMDb, and he stated he did absolutely no research on Hitler because Hitler's a fuck and he doesn't deserve any of the research. So that's where Geraldo's going.
Yeah, I can't believe they keep putting him on TV. Like I said, I thought he died out in like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Once again, yeah, well, in the 80s, I watched him open up, the hell was Al Capone's vault, and there was nothing in it, but he got to shoot a Tommy gun like an idiot, and they told him, stand behind this line when firing this weapon, and then he just walked towards the wall as he was shooting the Tommy gun. So he's a boob. All right, let's move on from him.
Agreed.
Shut up!
All right, so last week in Minnesota, like they don't have enough shit going on right now at the Chauvin trial. They had another shooting at Brookland Center, Minnesota, where Officer Kim Potter shot Dante Wright as he was resisting and jumped back in his car. So, very unfortunate event. When I first saw the video, I thought, holy shit, that chick's got to have like 3 years on the job. No offense, Brandon, because I know your 3 years are much more intense than my 3 years were. But like you said, adrenaline dump, right? She had an adrenaline dump, and fine motor skills and everything reverts back to she felt she was under attack, stress, and her main first reaction was to grab her handgun. They're arguing that she meant to murder this guy, and I'm watching the video. They've got 3 officers there. She's training one of them, and they leave his door open on his car. He's right next to the door. We should learn from other police officers' mistakes, and if and when I do make mistakes, we always discuss it, right? What could have we done better? So to watch this whole incident unfold, see this arrest, they've taken him into custody. Why was he being arrested? Oh, yeah, he had a warrant for firearms issue. So they leave the door open. He wrestles away, jumps in his car. Like you said earlier, what's in the car? We don't know. I honestly believe she made a mistake. She's yelling, as we're trained to do, taser, taser, taser. And then she realized immediately what happened. I keep seeing video of everyone saying that there's no way that she shouldn't be able to tell the difference between the weight of a handgun and the weight of a taser when they don't know what that adrenaline dump does to you and shuts off so many of your sensory perception.
Yeah, so this one pissed me off because no part of me thinks that she intentionally shot him. That I don't think that she grabbed her gun on purpose. I don't think she pulled the trigger thinking it was a gun. However, one thing that we do as law enforcement nationwide is we look at how other people have screwed up and then we fix it so that we don't screw up. So in California, we had one, this was a long time ago. It was actually at kind of like the, I guess for out in Chicago, it'd be like the L train. In New York, it'd be like the subway. We have something in the Bay Area called BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit. And it connects.
Is that the BART?
Yeah, BART. So they actually made a movie about it called Fruitvale Station. Haven't watched it, so I'm not going to talk about how accurate that was. But the basic premise is they were so underfunded, understaffed, that they were sharing equipment like tasers. And they would just throw it on their belt. There was no data behind like, hey, where should you actually place this thing that has the same kind of grip as a gun? And he gets into some struggle with a young black man, goes to tase him, accidentally pulls out his gun, fires one round into him, guy dies. I think he was actually convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to jail. And they actually want to like reopen his case and want to charge him with murder now. So they actually made a movie about it called Fruitvale Station. So industry standard, at least in California, is that your taser under no circumstances is on your dominant side. It is on your non-dominant side, where either you draw it with your left hand or you have to cross-draw it, like I talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Now, for me, looking at that video, and I don't know that department, I don't know what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, I don't know what their standard operating procedures are, I don't know anything about them. In fact, I didn't even know that city existed until this happened. So, having said that, I can't, with the training I've had, I can't fathom how you make that mistake. Because if you're right-handed like me, your gun is here versus having to come across to grab your taser. If you have it on a cross draw like I do, I have to actually reach across my midsection and grab that. So I understand the fine motor skills go, but you should, from looking at that use of force, and granted, I'm coming from a major city where we deal with a lot more violent crime than some smaller cities. Looking at that use of force, it wasn't that hairy or wasn't that intense. It was a small tense up. In my opinion, you should be able to, especially a young officer who's in training, like you're in the best shape of your life. You don't have years of midnights under your belt to eat 7-Eleven food and gain unnecessary weight. You should be able to pin that guy up against a car if that's where you choose to do business. And I'm not going to break down their tactics because different strokes for different folks, and we could be here all day. But that one, I think it sucks. It's tragic that guy died. And I've told suspects this, like, hey, it's not worth going to a hospital over. Whether it's for just bumps and bruises, scrapes, it doesn't matter. It's not worth ending up in the hospital. If you think I'm treating you wrong, if you think I'm profiling you, I'm more than happy to give you my name and badge number. Hell, I'll even write down the number to IA, and I dare you to call. I dare you. Tell them I mistreated you, because this is all being recorded on my body cam. I think this one sucks. I think that she should be charged. It just, if you look at the letter of the law, that can't happen. And I think you and I both know that as cops. And I think if you ask cops across the board, you would get that answer of that cannot happen. You cannot make that mistake. You can make plenty of mistakes. I make them every single day. That one you can't make. That's a big mess up. And it sucks for her, because from all indications, she served for 26 years admirably. And it's this one mistake that's going to cost her everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, all it takes right now is one mistake. And, all these people that think that these officers who are involved in these shootings, even good shoots, right? The one with this kid the other night in Chicago, there's video of the officer just sitting down on the ground, completely just distraught over what he just had to do. We don't go to work and look for someone to shoot. Whatever the narrative is nationally, don't believe it. It's bullshit. We're not driving down the street looking for people to pick on and get into a gunfight with. That's not why we do this job. And I feel bad for her. Like you said, 26 years doing an admirable job. And it's just one of those things that, I don't know, I could be wrong, but with what's going on in the nation right now, I know a lot of guys, we're not allowed to think too much when we're doing our jobs, right? You have to trust in your training and your experience and your observations. But now when people go, wait a minute, should I do this? Should I do that? You're opening up yourself to be harmed or to make mistakes. And that is a training issue. But with police departments being defunded nationally, training's going away. Our department has seen a lot less training over the years because we just don't have the money anymore. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. Thankfully, the mayor, who is quite left-leaning, he's got at least a brain in his head and can rationally think, because when there were calls to defund us, he said straight up, it's a non-starter. Like, no, that's not going to happen. People don't want to hear this.
Good.
But the answer is you need to pump more money into these departments. And I'm all for earmarking it. Say, hey, we'll increase your budget by, say, $1 million. But all $1 million of those dollars is going to go to training. It's going to go to jiu-jitsu. It's going to go to some sort of de-escalation training. It's going to go to different tools that we can put in your tool belt to make you a more effective cop. And it's not going to be optional. It is mandatory. Do that. Like most guys I know will spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year to go to trainings. They will go on their time off. But when you're asking people as a whole to spend their hard-earned money and use their own time off that they could be spending with their family to go try to make themselves better for a job that doesn't care about them, for a community that will stand outside and call you every name in the book, it's really hard, like for me personally, to justify that. Like, I'd rather save that money and take my kids on a trip and go spend it with them, instead of, going to, whatever training I can get into.
Yeah, we used to have an in-house training every year. We used to call it Eddie U, and Eddie is one of our lieutenants or commanders now. So he was our training sergeant at the time. So Eddie U would consist of 1 full week of in-house training, and it was fantastic. But then, our village monetarily situations changed, and they just started, you got to cut something, right? So they're going to cut training, because that's just simple.
It's the easiest one to get rid of.
Money. Yeah, it really is, unfortunately. All right, so wanted to talk about the officers. Once a week when we do this, unfortunately, we will be discussing officers who were killed in the line of duty and passed the previous week. You mentioned the number so far for the year is almost at 100. So we're going to pick up from April, since we're just starting this in April. And I just want to read these off quickly so they know these officers. April 2nd of this year, Capitol Police Officer, which everyone knows about, Billy Evans. He's an 18-year veteran. He was struck and killed by a vehicle whose driver was attempting to breach the barricade. Then the driver got out of the car and he attempted to attack the other officers with a knife before he was shot and killed. April 3rd, Newton Grove, North Carolina officer Brent Nelson Hall, 26 years old and a 5-year veteran, suffered a medical emergency while driving his patrol vehicle and struck a utility pole at a high rate of speed. April 3rd, same day, Hometown, Illinois police, a 34-year veteran, Lieutenant James Kowski, 58 years old, was struck and killed by a vehicle while investigating a prior DUI crash. April 6th, Bibb County, Georgia Deputy Sheriff, a 3-year veteran, Christopher Wilson Knight, 30 years old, stabbed to death by a prisoner. April 9th, Iowa State Patrol, 27-year veteran, Sergeant James K. Smith, 51 years old, shot and killed entering her home to arrest a man who initially disarmed another officer on a traffic stop, then fled that scene to his home. And April 10th, Jefferson Davis County, Mississippi Deputy Sheriff Thomas Patrick Barnes, 49 years old, killed in a vehicle crash while responding to a domestic disturbance. He also worked part-time for another police department at Prentiss, Mississippi. You know, the ones
wear your seatbelts
that get you are the shootings, the stabbings, you know, all that kind of stuff. Right. And the one that really pisses me off are car crashes. So many police officers die in car crashes a year. I got to keep reminding the young guys when we're training them. You know, everyone likes to drive a police car at 90 miles an hour. It's fun. But if you get killed on the way to your call, you're not helping anybody.
Yep, it's the same thing. You're no good to somebody crashed out on the side of the road. In fact, you're taking resources away from that.
Right, because now they got to come and save you. All right, let's get on to the woodworking part of our woodworking and law enforcement podcast. What do you got on your bench?
All right, so if you've hung around this long, I am currently working on a challenge coin flag for a buddy of mine, and then I'm going to be working on just a challenge coin rack for actually the first supervisor I ever had in the Air Force. So I'm getting that all situated while simultaneously trying to learn how to use my laser to make it actually work for me and make me a little bit of money. And then we're looking into getting into some online sales, whether that means Etsy or starting our own website so we don't have to pay Etsy a cut. That's everything that we're working on right now out here. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, I have a number of flags, of course, on my bench. I have a coin flag that I'm doing for my buddy's friend. He wanted a special coin flag, a special size with an ambulance picture on it and some other stuff. So I actually had to incorporate another maker in the Instagram community to make me this logo on vinyl because my vinyl machine isn't big enough. I have a Cricut. So I'm going to put this ambulance picture in the Union. And then I've got the flag stained and cut, but I didn't do the coin shelves yet. Sometimes I've done them with one piece of wood, and sometimes I've added wood. So this one, apparently I'm adding wood because I didn't cut them as one piece right now. And I'm doing a Bears flag for my daughter's boyfriend, for his dad. And I'm doing some work on the Jumanji, the Maker Collab 2021 with Uncle Deli. We're doing a Jumanji-themed movie prop, so I got that going on. And due this Wednesday is a house engraving of a photo. So a gentleman that tinted the windows on my truck, and I built him a flag, a custom edge window tinting, Fred. He asked me to make him an engraving of a picture of a home that he just sold to the new family. So I've gone through 4 different engravings so far, and none of them have turned out well. So tonight will be the 5th and hopefully final engraving before I throw the whole thing in a wood pile and tell him I can't do it.
You know what? And I've seen it a lot with the guys that have recently gotten CNCs, is that the learning curve on that thing is so incredibly steep. Like I tell you, I'm kind of glad I got the laser just because the using the software Lightburn, it's really no different than Cricut Design Space. Like a lot of the same tools apply. The only difference is I have to set a speed for the laser to move and nice. Then a power in which to use it. So the learning curve on that is much more forgiving than what it looks like the CNCs are.
Yeah, I don't know if it's me or user error, but I did one of these engravings for a real estate friend, and she gave it to the people that just bought their first home. And it was a one-off, right? I stained it. It was a 1/8-inch plywood. I took the picture in and a bitmap traced it and did all this stuff, and I picked the right bit and engraved it. This one, forever, it's got like 900 trees in the picture. It totally screws up the entire thing. I've tried 3 different bits. I have no idea what I'm doing. So last night I stripped it all down, I had to draw the house manually, which probably doesn't look like the house now. I had to download some trees and bushes SVG files from Etsy and incorporate them and put them where the other trees used to be. So that's what I'm going to do tonight, because I got to get this done. We want to do a hero of the week, right? Every week, call out a police officer that did something good, and I just decided that we wanted to do this today. So I don't have one. I do have a police officer in Pittsburgh. That Pittsburgh officer, Andre Wright, was challenged while he was on patrol to a foot race. There's a video on the Pittsburgh Police Department's Twitter feed, and you can see it where he just smokes this person in a foot race, which was pretty funny. But it was a girl he was racing, so I don't really know if it counts.
I watched the video. It counts. She's got wheels. She was picking them up and putting them down.
Okay, good. All right, well, with that, I think we'll close the first episode of the Handcuffs and Sawdust podcast. So in closing, I'd like to ask people, if you have a story in law enforcement that you want Brandon and I and our other guests upcoming to speak about, you can email it to the Handcuffs and Sawdust Podcast at gmail.com. All one word, Handcuffs and Sawdust Podcast at gmail.com. Also, you can use that email address to just send us ideas for the show. Ask us questions that we can answer on the air during the show. Anything that you want us to cover, woodworking or law enforcement-wise. Law enforcement-wise being my strength, woodworking not so much. I just happen to work with wood. I'm not a woodworker.
I play one on Instagram, but I got a whole lot of try hard in me and a whole lot of time of hands on the hips going, God, I don't know what the hell I'm doing out here. What am I doing?
Good. I'm glad I'm not alone. All right. So if you're listening to this podcast and you like it, please subscribe, download, whatever you need to do in that way to make it a stronger podcast for us. We want to grow this thing with your help. So in closing, I'm going to say thank you to everyone that's tuned in so far, and I'll let Brandon do the same.
Yeah, guys, thanks for tuning in. Even if you can't, rate and review it or anything like that, tell somebody about it. Tell a copper about it. Tell somebody who maybe has a negative opinion of cops. Just invite them in to have the conversation. Exactly. Use the email address. We'll have the debate with you. We'll give you the law enforcement side of it, because there's a lot that people just don't understand about why we do what we do. So if we can kind of raise that curtain a little bit and make you go, oh, okay, I still may not like it, but at least I get it now. Then that's all we can hope for. And all you coppers out there, keep your heads up.
Exactly.
There's plenty of people that actually do still care about us. They just don't shout it loud. And wear your damn seatbelt, and watch your partner's back, watch your back, and get home safe every day, guys.
That's right. Amen to that, Brandon. Thanks for saying that. So stay safe, everyone, and we will talk to you next week.